My roommate copied my every purchase obsessively, so I went shopping for justice. I lived with a human mirror named Amber who had this obsessive compulsion to own every single thing I purchased. And I'm not talking about getting inspired by my style or asking where I shopped. I mean, if I bought a ceramic mug from Target on Tuesday, she'd have the identical one sitting in our kitchen by Thursday morning. If I got new reading glasses with tortoiseshell frames from LensCrafters, she'd show up 3 days later wearing the exact same frames with clear glass lenses, even though her vision was 20/20 perfect. The copying started small and seemingly innocent. A throw pillow here, a scented candle there. I initially brushed it off as coincidence or maybe flattery. But then it escalated into something deeply unsettling. When I got a delicate butterfly tattoo behind my right ear after months of deliberation, Amber appeared the following week with an identical design in the exact same location. She claimed she'd been planning it for years, showing me a crumpled sketch she'd obviously drawn the night before. "Great minds think alike, right, Claire?" she'd say with that saccharine smile whenever I questioned the similarities. The breaking point came during my birthday celebration planning. I'd saved for 3 months, working extra shifts at the local bookstore, to afford this stunning emerald silk dress from Nordstrom. It was perfect for my 25th birthday party, elegant, sophisticated, and uniquely me. I specifically asked Amber not to copy this purchase, explaining how much it meant to me. "Of course not, Claire. It's your special day," she promised, looking genuinely offended that I'd even suggest such a thing. But when my birthday arrived and guests started filling our apartment, guess who walked out of her bedroom wearing my exact dress? Amber strutted into the living room like she was walking a runway, and when my friend Hannah complimented her outfit, Amber smiled sweetly and said, "Thanks. Claire actually copied my style. I got this weeks ago." My stomach dropped as several guests nodded approvingly at her lie. I wanted to scream, to show them my receipt, to expose her manipulation right there. Instead, I smiled through gritted teeth and excused myself to the bathroom, where I stared at my reflection wondering how I'd become a stranger in my own life. The night was ruined, but something else died that evening too, my willingness to give Amber the benefit of the doubt. As I watched her work the room in my dress, accepting compliments for my taste and style, I realized this wasn't innocent mimicry or even pathological behavior. This was theft. She was stealing my identity, piece by piece, purchase by purchase. And the worst part? She was getting away with it. The identity theft only intensified after my birthday disaster. My boyfriend Marcus, expose her manipulation right there. Instead, I smiled through gritted teeth and excused myself to the bathroom, where I stared at my reflection wondering how I'd become a stranger in my own life. The night was ruined, but something else died that evening too, my willingness to give Amber the benefit of the doubt. As I watched her work the room in my dress, accepting compliments for my taste and style, I realized this wasn't innocent mimicry or even pathological behavior. This was theft. She was stealing my identity, piece by piece, purchase by purchase. And the worst part? She was getting away with it. The identity theft only intensified after my birthday disaster. My boyfriend Marcus, a talented woodworker, had spent weeks crafting a one-of-a-kind anniversary necklace for me. He'd carved our initials into a piece of driftwood we'd found during our first beach trip together, then set it in a delicate silver pendant. It was meaningful, personal, and completely irreplaceable. I treasured that necklace, wearing it constantly and telling everyone the romantic story behind it. Marcus beamed with pride whenever someone admired his handiwork, and I loved seeing him so happy about creating something beautiful for me. 2 weeks later, Amber emerged from her room wearing an identical necklace. "Where did you get that?" I asked, my voice barely containing my rage. "Oh, this old thing." She fingered the pendant casually. "My boyfriend surprised me with it. He's so creative, came up with the whole design himself." "Your boyfriend? Amber, you're single. You've been single for 8 months. She laughed, a tinkling sound that made my skin crawl. "I mean my ex-boyfriend. We're working things out." Then she walked away, leaving me standing there speechless. When I told Marcus about the necklace incident, his face went through several emotions: confusion, disbelief, and finally anger. "That's impossible, Claire. I made that pendant specifically for you. The measurements, the wood grain, even the way I carved our initials, it's completely custom." We realized Amber must have taken detailed photos and found someone to create a replica. The level of premeditation was chilling. But the final straw came with my dream job interview. I'd been working toward a position at Sterling Design Associates for 2 years, building my portfolio and networking within the company. When they finally called for an interview, I planned my outfit meticulously: a navy blazer from Banana Republic, cream silk blouse from J.Crew, and my grandmother's vintage pearl earrings. The night before the interview, Amber offered to make dinner as a good luck gesture. We were sharing pasta and wine when she accidentally knocked over her glass, sending red wine cascading across my carefully chosen outfit. "Oh my God, Claire. I'm so sorry," she gasped, grabbing napkins but somehow making the stain worse. I rushed to the bathroom, scrubbing desperately, but the wine had set. My backup options were either too casual or inappropriate for an interview. With no time to shop and no money left in my budget, I faced an impossible choice. "Maybe we should reschedule," I said, calling Sterling's HR department with a heavy heart. The next morning, I watched from my bedroom window as Amber left the apartment wearing my exact planned outfit: the navy blazer, cream blouse, even similar pearl earrings. She was heading to an interview at Sterling Design Associates, scheduled 1 hour before my rescheduled appointment. She got the job. I got a polite rejection letter 3 days later. When Amber's mother called me the following week, her voice was sharp with accusation. "Claire, honey, I think you need to find your own style. Amber's been telling me how you copy everything she does, and frankly, it's becoming concerning." That night, staring at the ceiling of my childhood bedroom where I'd moved after losing the design job, I made the decision that would change everything. I was done being the victim in Amber's twisted game. After losing my dream job to Amber's manipulation, I stopped sharing anything about my life. No more casual conversations about purchases, no more excited updates about new discoveries, no more trusting smiles when she asked about my plans. I became a ghost in my own apartment, existing in spaces she couldn't infiltrate. That's when I started building something entirely in secret. For 8 months, I'd been developing an online vintage clothing business called Retro Revival. I worked exclusively from coffee shops around Phoenix, sometimes Starbucks on Central, other times the local spot called Copper Canyon Cafe. I used my mother's address in Scottsdale for all business correspondence and kept every receipt, inventory list, and customer contact hidden in a safety deposit box at Chase Bank. The business was thriving beyond my wildest expectations. I had an eye for finding authentic pieces from the 1960s and 70s, genuine Halston dresses, original Levi's jackets, vintage Coach purses that I'd restore to pristine condition. My Instagram account had gained 12,000 followers, and I was averaging over 100 orders per week. For the first time in years, I felt proud of something that was completely, authentically mine. Amber couldn't copy what she didn't know existed. But secrets have a way of revealing themselves when you least expect it. My mother, bless her heart, has always been my biggest supporter. She'd stop by the apartment occasionally to drop off mail from my business or just check in on me. Her hearing had been declining, so she'd installed new hearing aids that made her speak louder than necessary during phone calls. On that fateful Tuesday afternoon, I was at work at Barnes & Noble when Mom stopped by with a package from one of my vintage suppliers. She settled into our living room couch to return a call from my Aunt Linda, not realizing that Amber was home, allegedly sick with a migraine. "Oh, Linda, you should see how well Claire's doing with her vintage business." Mom's voice carried through the thin apartment walls. "She's absolutely brilliant at it. Over 100 orders just this week. I'm so proud of her. She's got such an eye for authentic pieces, and her customers just adore her." She continued for 10 minutes, detailing my success, my business model, even mentioning some of my regular customers by name. Every word was unknowingly providing Amber with a complete blueprint for replication. When I came home that evening, Amber was in the kitchen making chamomile tea, looking perfectly healthy despite her supposed migraine. "Feeling better?" I asked suspiciously. "Much better, thanks. Your mom stopped by, such a sweet woman. We had a lovely chat about family and things." Something in her tone made my blood run cold, but I couldn't put my finger on what exactly felt wrong. I wouldn't understand the full extent of the damage until 72 hours later, when my entire world came crashing down in ways I never could have imagined. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and I didn't even know the game had begun. Within 72 hours of my mother's innocent phone call, my world exploded. It started with a notification on my phone while I was restocking inventory at a vintage shop in Temp. Someone had tagged me in an Instagram post, and when I opened the app, my heart stopped. There it was, A brand new account called Vintage Vibes Arizona, with my exact aesthetic. The same filtered lighting I used, the same styling techniques, even the same vintage mannequin poses I'd spent months perfecting. But that wasn't the worst part. Every single item was priced exactly 20% below mine. I scrolled through the account in horror, watching as my business model was perfectly replicated with surgical precision. The bio even used similar language: curated vintage finds for the modern soul versus my hand-picked vintage treasures for today's free spirits. Then I noticed the comments. My customers, people I'd built relationships with over months, were asking about availability and praising the new discovery. My phone buzzed with a text from my regular customer, Patricia. "Hi Claire. I saw another vintage account with some pieces I love, but wanted to check with you first since you're usually my go-to. Do you know anything about Vintage Vibes Arizona?" Before I could respond, 3 more customers sent similar messages. Within hours, I watched my carefully cultivated client base being systematically poached. But how did this mysterious competitor know exactly who my customers were? The answer came when I returned to the apartment and found Amber in the parking garage, rifling through my Honda Civic with a flashlight. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, causing her to jump and drop a stack of papers. "Oh, Claire, you scared me. I thought I saw something fall out of your car earlier and was just trying to help." She scrambled to collect the scattered documents, but not before I saw what they were. Customer receipts, shipping labels, order forms with personal information. "Those are private business documents, Amber. How did you?" "I have no idea what you mean," she said, standing up with that familiar innocent smile. "I was just being neighborly." That night, I confronted her directly about the Instagram account. "Vintage is really trending right now," she said, perched on our kitchen counter like she didn't have a care in the world. "I guess creative minds think alike, you know? Besides, there's room for everyone in the marketplace." Her casual tone made my skin crawl. This wasn't coincidence or inspiration. This was calculated sabotage. As I lay in bed that night, listening to Amber humming contentedly in the next room, I finally understood what I was dealing with. She wasn't just a copycat or even a narcissist seeking attention. Amber was a parasite who fed off other people's creativity, success, and identity. She'd never stop taking from me because she had nothing original of her own to give. She'd taken my style, my relationships, my job, and now my business. But parasites have one fatal weakness: they can't survive without a host. And I was about to cut off her supply. If Amber wanted my life so badly, I decided I'd give her a life worth copying. But this time, I'd be the one controlling exactly what she saw, what she wanted, and ultimately, what she'd pay for the privilege of stealing from me. The student was about to become the teacher, and class was about to begin. I spent 2 weeks studying Amber like she was a laboratory specimen, documenting her patterns and identifying her fatal flaw. She copied blindly without ever researching anything because her obsession with being first overrode any common sense. My plan required precision, patience, and a co-conspirator. Enter my cousin Jake, a struggling actor from Los Angeles who'd been waiting tables at a Beverly Hills restaurant while auditioning for commercials. When I called him with my proposition, he was immediately intrigued. "You want me to play a luxury goods dealer? Claire, that sounds insane, and absolutely brilliant. What's my motivation?" "Your motivation is helping me teach a parasite that some things are too expensive to steal." Jake drove down from LA in his beat-up Toyota Corolla, which we immediately returned to Hertz in exchange for a rented silver BMW. We hit up a pawn shop in Scottsdale where he bought a convincing fake Rolex, then spent an afternoon practicing his character. "I am Maximilian Rothschild," he said in a ridiculous European accent that sounded like a cross between British nobility and a German chocolate commercial. "I deal in exclusive luxury imports for very special clientele." While Jake perfected his persona, I created my digital trap. First, I set up a fake Instagram account called LuxLife Phoenix, with a carefully curated aesthetic of high-end lifestyle content. Private jets, designer shopping bags, expensive restaurant meals, all stock photos arranged to look like personal experiences. Then I began leaving evidence around the apartment like breadcrumbs for a hungry bird. Fake receipts for designer handbags printed on convincing letterhead. Empty luxury boxes from Prada, Gucci, and Louis Vuitton, purchased from eBay and filled with thrift store finds wrapped in authentic tissue paper. I'd act embarrassed whenever Amber saw the bags, quickly hiding them while mumbling about investment pieces, and building my portfolio. The bait worked immediately. I'd catch her photographing the boxes when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd ask casual questions about my new income stream and where I'd learned about luxury investments. I always gave vague, mysterious answers that made her more curious. On my fake Instagram, I started posting about passive income and investment portfolios, using financial buzzwords I'd researched online. Diversifying into tangible luxury assets, one caption read, "When you know someone who knows someone, the opportunities are endless." Every morning for a week, I brought home shopping bags from Neiman Marcus and Saks Fifth Avenue, actually filled with thrift store purchases carefully rewrapped in saved tissue paper from previous legitimate purchases. "You've been shopping a lot lately," Amber observed, eyeing the designer bags with barely concealed hunger. "Oh, these? Just picking up a few things through my connection. I probably shouldn't say too much about it." Then I casually mentioned Maximilian, my personal connection who provided 90% discounts through exclusive relationships with European suppliers. 90%. Her eyes widened. "That's impossible." "Not if you know the right people. Max has connections I could never get on my own, but is very selective about his clients." For 3 days, Amber badgered me relentlessly about meeting Maximilian. She offered to cook dinner, clean the apartment, even pay my portion of the utilities if I'd introduce them. Finally, I agreed with convincing reluctance. "Okay, but Max is very particular about discretion. If he doesn't like you, that's it, no second chances." Jake arrived the next evening in his rented BMW, wearing his fake Rolex and speaking in his practiced accent. He toured Amber around his private showroom, a climate-controlled storage unit I'd rented and filled with sophisticated replicas ordered from overseas. "These pieces, they are not for everyone," he said, gesturing at fake designer handbags and watches. "But for someone with your, how do you say, refined taste? Perhaps we can work together." Amber was hooked before he finished his first sentence. The trap was set, and she was walking straight into it. Amber took the bait like a starving fish attacking a diamond-encrusted lure. Jake, fully committed to his role as Maximilian Rothschild, had transformed the storage unit into a convincing luxury showroom. Soft lighting, classical music, and carefully arranged replica pieces created an atmosphere of exclusivity. He'd even printed professional-looking certificates of authenticity and business cards with embossed logos. "This Hermes Birkin bag," Jake said, holding up a replica that had cost him $200 online, normally retails for $40,000. "For you, Miss Amber, I can offer it for $8,000, but only because Claire speaks so highly of you." Amber's eyes widened as she handled the bag, completely mesmerized by what she believed was a 90% discount on authentic luxury. "And this Cartier watch? Retail price $25,000. For you, $5,000. By the end of that first visit, Amber had committed to purchasing $12,000 worth of luxury goods, money she didn't have but planned to acquire through credit cards and personal loans. But Jake wasn't finished. "I have been thinking," he said during their second meeting, "you have such excellent taste. Perhaps you would be interested in a business opportunity." He pitched her on becoming an exclusive distributor for his luxury import business, requiring an initial investment of $30,000 to secure her territory and first shipment. "This is a ground floor opportunity," Jake explained with his ridiculous accent. "In 5 years, you could be making 7 figures annually." Amber was so blinded by greed and the prospect of finally surpassing me that she didn't ask a single logical question. She didn't research the company, didn't ask for references, didn't even Google Maximilian Rothschild, which would have returned exactly 0 legitimate results. Instead, she took out a personal loan against her car, maxed out 3 credit cards, and borrowed money from her parents under the pretense of investing in her future. For 2 weeks, I watched Amber transform into someone I barely recognized. She walked around the apartment with new confidence, constantly checking her phone for updates from Max, and posting cryptic messages on social media about big changes coming. She bought new outfits to match her perceived status, started eating at expensive restaurants she couldn't afford, and even leased a BMW to look the part of a successful luxury goods distributor. The fake handbag alone had cost her $8,000, more than most people spend on a reliable used car. The climax came when Amber decided to throw a massive house party to show off her new investments and business venture. She invited everyone we knew, plus her extended family and co-workers from her retail job at Macy's. "I want everyone to see how well I'm doing," she told me while addressing invitations. This is going to be the party of the year. I helped her plan it, suggesting she display all her luxury purchases prominently so guests could admire her success. She loved the idea, arranging her fake designer goods like museum pieces throughout the living room. On the night of the party, 60 people crowded into our small apartment. Amber held court in the center of the room, wearing her fake Cartier watch and carrying her replica Birkin bag, telling anyone who would listen about her exclusive business partnership with a European luxury importer. That's when my friend Hannah arrived with her plus one, a woman named Dorothy who worked as an authentication specialist for estate sales and high-end consignment shops. Amber's really done well for herself, Hannah commented, nodding toward our hostess. Dorothy, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, glanced around the room with professional interest. Those are some impressive pieces. Mind if I take a closer look? What happened next would haunt Amber for years to come. Dorothy approached Amber's prized Hermes Birkin bag with the focused attention of a forensic investigator examining evidence. The party continued around us, but I found myself holding my breath as the authentication expert lifted the bag and began her examination. "This is gorgeous," Dorothy said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Do you mind if I show everyone how to spot authentic luxury hardware? I love educating people about what to look for." Amber beamed with pride. "Of course. I'd love for everyone to learn." "Big mistake." Dorothy held up the bag like a professor with a teaching aid. "Now, genuine Hermes hardware has a very specific weight and finish. You can feel the quality immediately." She hefted the bag's metal clasps. These feel surprisingly light." A small crowd had gathered, phones already emerging to record what they assumed would be an educational demonstration. "And the stitching," Dorothy continued, running her finger along the seams. "Authentic Hermes uses a very specific saddle stitch technique. Each stitch should be perfectly uniform, and the thread has a distinctive texture." She paused, examining the bag more closely. "This stitching pattern is interesting." The room had gone quiet except for the soft pinging of phones recording video. "The stamp inside should be crisp and perfectly aligned," Dorothy said, opening the bag and photographing the interior with her phone's flashlight. "Authentic pieces never have smudged or crooked stamps." She looked up at the crowd with a professional smile. "This is actually a perfect example of a high-quality replica. The craftsmanship is impressive, but you can see here, and here where it deviates from authentic specifications." Amber's face went through several shades of pale before settling on a sickly green color. "I think there's been a mistake," she stammered, but Dorothy was already examining the Cartier watch with the same methodical attention. "Replica as well," Dorothy announced cheerfully. "Very convincing, but the weight is wrong. An authentic Cartier never uses this particular clasp mechanism." The crowd murmured as phones continued recording. I watched Amber's entire world collapse in real time as Dorothy systematically debunked every piece in her collection. "Where did you purchase these?" Dorothy asked with genuine curiosity. "Whoever sold them to you charged premium prices for replicas. That's actually illegal in most states." Amber tried to blame me, claiming I'd introduced her to a fraudulent dealer, but I was ready with my evidence. I pulled out receipts from thrift stores, all dated the same days as my supposed luxury hauls, showing I'd spent less than $50 total on my props. "I was building an art installation about consumer culture and materialism," I said calmly. "I never claimed these items were authentic. I bought everything at Goodwill and Salvation Army." Jake had already disappeared with Amber's $30,000 investment, though in reality, he'd driven straight to the police station in Los Angeles to turn in the money as evidence of attempted fraud, protecting himself legally while ensuring Amber couldn't recover her losses. By the time the last guest left that night, videos of Amber's humiliation had already been shared dozens of times across social media. Her co-workers saw them. Her family saw them. Her ex-boyfriends saw them. Within a week, she'd lost her job at Macy's due to the embarrassment and her inability to focus on work while dealing with creditors. The lease on her BMW was repossessed when she couldn't make payments. Her parents, discovering the extent of her debt and the reason behind it, made her move back into her childhood bedroom. Amber now lives in suburban Mesa with her mother and stepfather, working part-time at a discount clothing store while paying off crushing debt from her attempt to copy a life that never existed. She still shops at thrift stores, but now it's out of necessity rather than choice. Old habits die hard, but sometimes they die expensive. And sometimes, when you spend your life stealing other people's dreams, you end up with nothing but nightmares of your own making. As for me, I rebuilt my vintage clothing business stronger than ever, with customers who appreciated authenticity over imitation. I learned that the best revenge isn't getting even, it's giving someone exactly what they deserve while protecting yourself from ever being their victim again. Some people collect vintage clothes. Others collect expensive lessons about the difference between inspiration and theft. Amber got the education she'd been asking for, she just paid a much higher tuition than she'd expected.